You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Oftentimes when someone is given anonymity, they're very honest. Right? If you're allowed to speak under the condition of anonymity, chances are you're going to be truthful and forthcoming because you don't fear any retribution. I suppose the argument could be made that the opposite is also true. If you're given anonymity, then there's no real consequence in telling a falsehood, if that's the case. But one of the things I love to do every year around this time, around the start of the season, is when some publications put out anonymous quotes from coaches. If you're new to the show, I do this every year. I think Athlon does a great one where they ask SEC coaches to talk anonymously about other coaches in their programs, and you usually get some very good stuff. Well, ESPN has a piece up. Adam Rittenberg, who's a longtime writer there over at ESPN, and Adam Rittenberg gave coaches from various leagues anonymity to speak about quarterbacks in their respective leagues. Naturally, I was going to be interested in what they said about Garrett Nussmeier, because Nussmeier is one of the quarterbacks that some SEC coach spoke anonymously about. Now, it is worth mentioning, I always thought this caveat, that we don't know who the coach is. So it could be a head coach. It could be a defensive coordinator. It could be a quality control assistant at Vanderbilt. Could be. Don't know. So you just have to trust the source, meaning Adam Rittenberg, ESPN, that what they are printing here is valid and valuable. Okay? I tend to put a lot of stock in this because I don't think something like this would be published at ESPN.com or say Athlon or something like that if it wasn't reputable. So the coach that was asked to speak on Garrett Nussmeier had this to say. It's a print piece, so I'll read the quote for you about Garrett Nussmeier. Quote, "He's going to be an elite player. He's got great arm action. He's got great arm strength. He's got great anticipation. He knows the game. He's got just enough arrogance that he knows how to play quarterback." I love all of that, in particular the last line. You know, we're at SEC Media Days in July. It's interesting because you go there for 4 days, and inevitably everyone there ends up doing a ton of interviews. I did dozens of interviews on other people's stations. It's just how it's reciprocal, right? People come on your show, you go on theirs, whatever. But when you do that, you end up answering the same question over and over and over again, right? So when people would ask about LSU, it was Brian Kelly year 3. How do you replace Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas? Is the defense going to be any better? And so you answer the same question over and over and over. And so one of the questions always was about Nuss. And so I had my pat answer. If you cared to, you could go look at any of these stations on demand and go listen to my interviews, and you will have heard me say this 1,000 times. And this is how I say it. Hey, look, if you go to Central Casting and you try to pick out a quarterback, it probably looks like Garrett Nussmeier. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. He's got the size. He's got the arm strength, can make all the throws. He's the son of a coach, high football IQ, tons of confidence, moxie, bordering on arrogance. That's how I've described Garrett Nussmeier forever. He checks all the boxes. Check. The one thing we don't know about him is how he'll hold up and how he'll play over a 12-game season because we just haven't seen it yet. That's the one question. It's just experience, but I think a lot of people are excited on. I mean, I've given that answer so many times that I could spit that out in my sleep now because I've said it so many times on so many different platforms. So it was interesting that this coach anonymously said Nussmeier, has got just enough arrogance that he knows how to play quarterback. Now, here's the one thing about Garrett. There was one question we all have outside of the experience, right? But there's one question. Does that arrogance or cockiness end up getting you in trouble? It's literally the one thing. If you go back and look at the game against Southern a couple of years ago where Garrett came in as a sub, he threw one of the most heinous pick sixes I've ever seen in my life. And That's kind of been the MO. In 2022, he threw 5 touchdowns and 4 picks. Can he purge the bad decisions, the interceptions, the mistakes out of the game? Because if he does, he's got everything else that checks every other box. You have arguably the best offensive line in the history of the program. You have a gaggle of freak show receivers. It's so embarrassing to look and just say, hey, just give me one. I don't care. Just give me whoever. Hey, Kyron's not available right now. Give me Shelton Sampson. Okay, the 5-star that runs like a gazelle and jumps out the gym. Yes, that guy who's just sitting on the bench waiting for his turn. Chris Hilton, former 5-star, now as a 4th-year player is going to get his opportunity. You know what I mean? It's like there's an embarrassment of riches. The only thing, in my estimation, singular, outside of injuries, but the only thing that would derail this season offensively is turnovers. And Brian Kelly was asked about that after practice on Wednesday, about Garrett's decision-making being the one thing that could potentially hold him back.
He wasn't the starter, so, his interceptions were, mop-up duty, trying to get on the field, trying to make a play. He was in a whole different – it wasn't his car, as I said. He was driving that thing fast, and he didn't care if he dented it. It's his car now, and he's really careful that he doesn't, mess it up. And so there's a different mindset, kind of like what I was talking about, the number 2 versus the number 1. He understands that he can't put the ball in the other team's hands.
He understands he can't put the ball in the other team's hands. It's the mindset it's the analogy Brian Kelly gave us at Media Days. When you rent a car as opposed to owning a car. When you rent a car, you might ding it up a little bit. It's not your car. You leave I would never do this, to be clear. I'd still be respectful of other people's property. But you leave your trash wrappers in there, and you don't wash it, and maybe you're parked a little crooked because you're not worried about it. When it's your car and you're paying for it, you make sure it's polished. You make sure you run it through the car wash. You make sure you take all the trash out. You want to make sure people aren't putting their feet up on the seat. You take care of it. That's the analogy BK's given right there. So it'll be fascinating to see if Garrett can do that. Because, listen, when you look back at LSU, and you can just look at recent history, and it's so clear. I'm going to give you some numbers, and numbers don't always play well on radio, and I get that. But you'll understand, even if you don't memorize this, how much turnovers and interceptions can derail a season. Last year, Jaden Daniels threw 40 touchdowns and had 4 interceptions. 40 to 4 in 13 games. Well, I guess 12 because he didn't play in the bowl game. By the way, Joe Burrow threw 60 touchdowns in a season. He did play 15 games, but anyway. In 2020, the COVID year, the combination of Miles Brennan, TJ Finley, and Max Johnson threw 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. More than double the amount that Jaden threw a year ago. In 2021, Max Johnson and Garrett Nussmeier combined for 11 interceptions. In 2022, BK's first year, Jaden Daniels, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Nussmeier, in his duty, by the way, went 5-4. 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But Daniels was 17-3. And by the way, LSU went 9-3. They beat Bama, went to the SEC championship game. Yes, you know this intellectually. You know this. You have to protect the football. And I think that's the one thing. It's the one singular thing with Garrett Nussmeier. And even the coaches in this league know it. He's going to be an elite player. He's got a great arm action. He's got great arm strength. He's got great anticipation. He knows the game. He's got just enough arrogance that he knows how to play quarterback. The key for Garrett is making sure that arrogance of how to play quarterback, that arrogance doesn't become carelessness. As long as he is careful and maintains, he straddles that line perfectly, he'll be awesome. And I think this LSU offense is going to be awesome again this year. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.